What's up everybody, my name is Brandon Thrower and I am a photographer and videographer with White Blaze Marketing. Welcome to our channel. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining us. If you have not already, go ahead and subscribe down below and make sure you're staying up to date with all that we have to offer on this channel. So today what we're going to be doing is we are going to be going over our Lightroom workflow. How we take a raw image file and turn it into what we want people to see, what type of color scheme that we're going with, how to get the right exposure. And so we're going to go through all those steps, and hopefully this is going to help you out so you can improve the look of your photos and get that professional quality that everyone's looking for. So let's go ahead and dive into Lightroom. Alright, so we are now in Lightroom, and what I've pulled up here for us is two images. They're the same image, but one of them is completely edited over here. This is our reference image, and this is the original image. And I'm going to show you how I got from here to there. So what we're going to do is first we are going to use our exposure and get this exposed properly, because obviously this is nice and bright and white and vibrant. So we want to make sure we get that. Also we have a crop, so let's go out of reference view right quick and let's just get that crop set. We're on a 4x5, which is the Instagram crop. We're going to get into there, and then let's do some angles, because obviously it needs to be straightened out a little bit more. And I think that's it. That's all I can do on this one. So that's close. The same crop, I believe. Alright, done. So let's now go back to our reference image. Yeah, pretty close. Alright, not too bad. Alright, so we're going to go from this to this. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is we want to adjust the exposure. Obviously this is way more bright than this one. So I usually start with this. Now, the reason that this image is so underexposed is because I did that on purpose. When I shot in the camera, I had my zebra settings on, so zebras would tell me what was overexposed in the image. I didn't want to overexpose that stuff because I could lose that information in the highlights. So what I tried to do with that is to make sure I exposed properly to where I got everything that I wanted to expose properly, because I know I'm just going to bring it back in post because I'm shooting in RAW. Alright, you can only do this in RAW though, so make sure you're shooting in RAW. So I took it underexposed on purpose because I knew I could brighten up later, and I wanted to get all the information in the highlights as possible. So here we go. So first thing I do, I'm going to bump up my exposure. I'm going to use my histogram to help me get that exposure correct. So I'm bringing it up, and you see how the mountain is created. It went from kind of all that information, let's go back to 0, all that information here on the right, because that's where your shadows are. These are where these are where your blacks and shadows, and these are where your whites and your highlights are located. So you want to get a nice even exposure across here, where all that's kind of built up like a big old plateau-y mountain. So that's where I get to there. Alright, so that's not bad. I want a stop and a half. That's a lot, but I underexposed that much. So now we're here, and you can see I've lost nothing in his legs. I've gained stuff in his legs, so that's what we want to have. Alright, so now the next thing I'm going to do is come down to my whites and my blacks, and I'm going to adjust those a little bit, get those whiter and get those black, just get those contrasts. Now, I'm already clipping a little bit here on my whites, but I'm clipping in an area that's already going to be clipping. So I still want to increase my whites a little bit. So I'm bringing those up, watching the leg to make sure I'm not overblowing anything in the leg. So I'm looking about 30 is good. All right, am I clipping over here? Yeah, that's fine. This is gonna be overexposed. All right, and now I'm gonna go into my blacks slider, and I'm gonna watch for this clipping, and I wanna bring those blacks where that touches all the way to the edge. So bring that over, and oh, there goes this, showing me that I'm starting to clip. And you know what? I'm liking the blacks there a little bit. I might take it just a little bit past. No, actually I'm not. I'm just gonna leave it right there where it starts clipping. So now I've got a big old plateauy mountain of exposure. I've got good exposure now. All right, not too bad. So there are some things I can still do. I could bring out some of the highlights a little bit. I could boost those some more, but then I start losing them back here in the rock. Or I can bring them down a little bit and maintain those details in the rock. If you look at this image, detail is maintained in this rock, except maybe right in here. So I'm gonna bring those highlights down just a little bit. Maybe right around there. And then his shirt is very bouncing, and this is very shadowy right here. So he's got a big shadow on his face. I'm actually gonna bring up those shadows too to help bring that out. All right, so now I got a little bit more on his face. Getting close, he seems a little bit darker there. That's pretty good, but there's the last thing when we come to here. So I'm gonna add some contrast. I like contrasty images. So I'm gonna come into my contrast slider. I'm gonna slide that up. And when you see what that contrast does, it really widens out this exposure. So I'm getting all this good exposure all the way from left to right. So I'm gonna bring that contrast up to about 20. And now we're starting to get very similar images. All right. The only thing difference now is coming kind of close to the color. Obviously we got more yellowish green here than the actual green. I'm gonna come down to clarity too. I'm gonna boost up my clarity. If you use the clarity slider, if you go super high, you get really crunchy images. If you go super low, then you get these really soft, dreamy images. I tend to like to stay on the crunchy end of it, but not super crunchy like that. That doesn't look good. So I'm gonna bring it up to about 7. 7 looks good. I don't use a ton of this because I do a little bit more sharpening later in my workflow, but that's where we're at. And then for saturation and vibrance, I'm gonna leave saturation alone. I don't like saturation because it boosts up the entire saturation of the entire image. I don't like that. So I'll leave saturation at 0 for the most part. I'm gonna boost up my vibrance a bit. Now we're starting to get those blues out. I think that's a little bit too much. So I think somewhere around 40 is good. What I found is the butter zone for vibrance is right around 15 to 50. If you go over 50, you're getting way too vibrant. And if you go under 15, you're not getting a ton, and you're getting more of a flatter image. And that's fine, it's all up to creative process, but this is what I like to do. So I brought my vibrance up pretty good. So we're getting pretty close now to the same image. Just one few things that we have. Now, look here again, we have nice, big, wide histogram here. So this is showing a lot of dynamic range, which is something that we want to have. All right, so next thing is tone curve. I'm going to add a little S curve here. So I'm going to hit a point there. I'm going to bring that up. And the only thing this does is kind of lift the blacks a little bit and makes them a little bit white. If you look in the histogram, now the max edge is down to here. You can't really gain that back. I did lose a little bit in the highlight, so I'm going to add another point there and bring that up to get back to normal. There's your S curve, and you can also hit a midpoint just to kind of tweak it. All right, I like it there. So it's a very slight S curve, but helps you out a little bit. All right, So let's get into the Hsl sliders. Alright, first thing I want to do, look, these greens, they're green. So I'm going to go change the hue of this green from this yellow to this green. That's what I call the fit sock green. It's their logo, it has that green color. So we made the artistic choice to go with a green that looked like their logo. Match things up. So I'm going to change that hue over, and I'm getting closer and closer. That's about right there. You're saying, well, that's a lot brighter than this. Yes, it is. I'm about to change some things because I'm going to go back down to saturation now, and I'm going to desaturate that a bit, not a ton, and that's going to change that color a little bit. And then the last thing I'm going to do is going to come down to the luminance. I'm going to bring down the luminance of that green, and whoa, boom, we are getting very close to the same color green. Alright, I think that this green's a little bit more saturated, so I'm going to add a little bit more saturation back. I'm going to change the hue just a little bit more. Ooh, that's about a perfect match. So we're getting very close to perfect match here. The only thing I'm seeing is a little bit more some grays and stuff here. So what we're going to do is desaturate some probably somewhere in here. But anyway, let's look at the skin tones now. Skin tones are very important. We want to make sure we are capturing those. You can see that these are a little bit orange, a little bit more warm. So I'm going to come into orange, and I like where that's at. So I'm just going to take the saturation down a little bit until I match up those skin tones. I think I did right there. It's not yellow, it's not pink. It's about right. So maybe -2 on that orange, and to get that. That's looking pretty darn close. I can barely tell the difference now. Good. So let's see, is there anything else? Let's look at the blues here and the blues here. This blue is a little bit darker. So I'm going to come down here and they look about the same tone. So I'm going to come down to the luminance. I'm going to boost that blue luminance. And there we go. Now we got the same color blue across the image. Let's see. Have anything in the aqua channel? Minus that. Minus that. Alright. So getting close. I think there's actually a little bit more luminance in here. In that blue channel. And then maybe there is some saturation in that blue channel too. Yep, a little bit of saturation. And aquas. Can't really see many aquas. Good way to find out what colors you have in your image. Just go into hue and just kind of mess around and see what you get. Any color shifting there. There's not much. So I'm just going to boost it just a little bit towards the bluer end, but for the most part I think I'm going to leave it there. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to the split toning. I can tell this is split tone because if you look here in these highlights, they're a little bit blue, these highlights are a little bit orange, these shadows are a little blue, these shadows are a little bit orange, and I love to do a double blue split tone. So I know that's where this is coming from, so I'm going to jump my highlights. I like about a 192, 191. Saturation there is about 10. We're getting very close to that same color right there. Alright. And then for the blue in here, I like to go a little bit cooler with a little bit more of a blue to about 215-ish, and then bring that up to about 5 is where I usually like to set. If we look at that, those are very, very, very similar. Ooh, now one thing I'm seeing some yellow in here that I did not do. So I need to go back up here, yellow. I'm gonna go to my luminance. That's some luminant yellow right there. Add that in, and that changed that a little bit, so I need to go up to my slider of my yellow and change that to a little bit warmer of a yellow. Alright, I lost a little bit of skin tone on that. Okay, the same colors there. So I need to go back into my oranges and add a little bit more orange back to match this. And so basically I did not mess with the saturation of the orange. I'm going to go back to the hue a little bit too, and that's too yellow. Maybe I was... looks like maybe I went a little bit orange on the reds to get that on that hue. Yep, that was it. Alright, so now we pretty much have the same image. Looks like this highlight on his hat is a little bit more. So I'm going to go to my highlights, bring those down a little bit more. Not. It's interesting. But basically, that is basically the same image. That's how I get it. Got it. The last thing I'm going to do for this is I'm going to change the sharpening. It's not completely in focus, its whole body. Still a good image for the show, for the web, I mean. So I'm going to go down to sharpening. I usually like 50. It's a good amount of sharpening. Then we'll go to masking. On masking, hit Command Option, and then as you scroll this, you can just highlight the stuff you want to highlight, which is I just want to highlight him. That's all I really want to sharpen. So I get that, and I am good to go. There's my sharpening added. I'm going to add just a little bit of noise reduction, maybe about 5, and we pretty much have the exact same image now, and that's how I did it. I think there is a little bit of vignette on here, so I add a little bigger vignette at the end, back end of it. Yep, there we go, and that's it. So, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please give us a big thumbs up below, and if not, still give us a big thumbs up below, and still subscribe. Please subscribe to us so we can help support us with what we're doing here and bringing these educational materials with you. And if you have any questions about what we were doing today, feel free to leave a comment below and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Alright, peace out, and we'll see you in the next one.